Hello students, welcome to week 2 for PRL 320, Business Literacy for PR Professionals. This week we will be going over core concepts in accounting and basic concepts that any PR practitioner should know about. If we look at the week 2 agenda, we'll see here that we are reading chapter 3, which is a simple title in terms of telling us about important accountant concepts. We have a discussion board with 2 deadlines. Our original post, meaning our actual answer, is due on Friday, and our replies to at least 2 students are due on Sunday. Your discussion board post will be around the cash basis accounting, which we'll get to in a second. Assignment number 2 asks you to go through an attached financial review standard document. It's a PDF. After you go through that and read it, it's about 30 pages. You don't need to read it too critically. It's more for you to go through and have an idea of what these important accounting concepts are. You're going to discuss the practice of financial review, what that is, why is it important, the value of this, and then you'll provide a link and an overview to a corporate financial scandal that could have been possibly avoided with proper review practices. So discussion number 2 tells us that we are going to write a 400-word post that explains cash basis accounting and accrual accounting. We're going to discuss this in this lecture today, so do not worry. It's also covered directly within chapter 3's text. Once you've done that, you will explain what those are, what the value of each of those types of accounting are, and then post that no later than Friday. And then you will read your course mates post and respond to 2 of them by Sunday. Assignment number 2, like mentioned in the agenda, is an assignment related around the idea of current financial review practices. We will be looking at a PDF that is posted in Blackboard that it's about 30 or 40 pages that provides you with a comprehensive overview of what the practice of financial review is. You need to go through that thoroughly and determine what you feel the value is of the process of financial reviews and write an 800 to 1,000 word essay. In this, you will also include a link to a corporate scandal that could have possibly been avoided with proper financial review practices. Then you will provide a reflection within this essay of the corporate financial scandal and how it relates to the course content for this assignment. Do include sources that are within the course information and also include some outside sources. When we look at accrual versus cash accounting, it's important to understand what these really are. It's the first thing that's discussed in the chapter 3 important accounting concepts chapter. It's really underneath a system. So there's a system that's set up through accountants nationwide known as GAAP with 2 A's, GAAP. This is generally accepted accounting principles. It's important to understand that these values are represented in financial statements and are drawn from by businesses' accounting systems. It's confirmed and it's conformed that these generally accepted accounting principles are all used within the U.S. and is a body of convention of rules. Accrual and cash accounting are 2 options to businesses. So as a business, you can operate either as a cash basis accounting system or utilize an accrual accounting system. It's important to know that you make the choice, you must adhere to it consistently. So you're either going to be cash basis or accrual. A cash basis accounting records transactions when cash has actually traded hands. So many small businesses use this method because it's simple, it gives the proprietor some flexibility in managing their taxable income, and it allows you to only record accounting records as the cash exchanges hands from those that you are receiving services with. In contrast to this type of accounting system, an accrual accounting system is used that records transactions as they're made regardless if actual monies are exchanged. Whether or not the cash has actually changed hands, a lot of companies of any size will use an accrual accounting system. This system provides a better matching between revenues and the associated costs, which can help companies understand the true causes and effects of business activities. Accordingly, revenues that are recognized during the period in which the sales activities occur, whereas expenses are also recognized in the same period as their associated revenues. So you have a given sales period within your accrual system that you account for any sales regardless if you received cash on those sales yet, and you delineate all expenses so you can see exactly what income came in quarter 1 regardless if you actually have accounted and received it. and then account for any expenses, anything that went out in quarter one. It gives you a more accurate, not just accurate, but it gives you a better matching between the revenues and the associated costs in terms of garnering those revenues. So the chapter goes in to discuss this pretty in depth. I wanted to go through it here so you could have a good understanding of what it is. Another interesting effect of accrual accounting that I do want to mention is that the treatment of so-called prepaid expenses. Some companies purchase multi-year leases, insurance policies, and such with a single payment. These represents prepaid expenses. When initially made, they're recorded on the balance sheet, for example, in that time that they are taken within as prepaid insurance. Each year's portion of that payment is charged off as an expense as it's used. So there are many different things to going into this. They also provide some case studies in the book, which are very useful in keeping that in mind. The next point I wanted to point out from the course text is cost accounting. Cost accounting keeps track of the cost of many things that go directly or indirectly into the production of each unit, goods, and services sold by the company. The purpose of this really is multifaceted, but primarily is to develop reasonable selling prices for the goods and services they produce, identify costs that are getting out of control, target particular costs for gradual reduction, determine which products and services are profitable or not. Some costs are direct, some are indirect. So cost accountants are interested in both, and managers should be as well. So for example, indirect costs, often called overhead, allocations, or burden, are costs that cannot be attributed to the production of any particular unit of output. The rent on the production facility, utility costs, the salaries, tax and benefits, executives, things of that nature are not necessarily, are all indirect costs. They are not directly related to the production of anything tangible within the company. So in most cases, these overhead costs are allocated to units of production according to some formula set by the company. This is important to keep in mind. As we move through this course, you may be thinking, why am I learning? I'm not a business major. I'm not an accounting major. Why am I learning all of these things about business when all I want to get into is public relations? We know public relations is a strategic communication function. It, manages the communication between an organization. It works as a mediator between the organization and its publics. We know that. So there's three things here I wanted to discuss to help you understand at this point in the term why we are even taking a course of this nature. One thing that's not listed in this slide right here is that once you get into the PR industry and you become a member of PRSA, the Public Relations Society of America, the most widely known organization in America for PR practitioners as well as internationally, you may want to attain APR. APR is Accreditation in Public Relations, and we talked about this a little bit last week. So your APR tells the world that you are certified and accredited in being a public relations practitioner. There are many units within this test that you take on your APR, but one of the largest units of this test is business literacy. PRSA has made it a point to know that PR professionals need to understand and be literate in specific business terminology and the practices of business in order to provide an accurate perspective of what the communicative situation is for an organization. As such, the first thing we need to keep in mind why this is important for PR pros is that we need to understand changing economic conditions. Economic conditions of business directly influence the communicative practices of an organization. If we're profitable, if we're not, if we're hovering in this gray area, knowing that our economic condition can change from quarter to quarter to year to 5 years to 10 years is very, very important. One of the only ways for us to do that is to know how to read and interpret financial statements, thus the need for taking a business literacy course. If we can understand and be able to read and interpret financial statements as a communicator, we will be able to better predict the communicative interest of an organization over time. In turn, financial and competitive forecast challenges tell us as PR professionals that we need to bring true leadership to our organizations. The PR practitioner always has a seat in the C-suite, the CEO suite. When we sit at that table, we need to understand the business terminology and the financial statements and the financial review practices to be able to sit there and tell the people in charge of making these decisions what the communicative practices for an organization may be. When we develop and we decide to launch a new campaign about building our brand or building awareness or a new product or whatever it may be, if we don't understand our financial conditions, we cannot provide an accurate communicative plan for those for our CEOs. So by understanding the changing economic conditions, analyzing financial statements, knowing that they can transform the organization into a meaningful narrative will influence the communicative initiatives within an organization. Loosely saying, this will help us in developing PR plans. This will help us in employee relations, investor relations, consumer relations, and all the aspects of public relations that a large organization or small organization may encounter. So it's very, very important for you to keep that in mind. On some of these activities, am I expecting you to understand and be able to do the math accurately and in the way that it should be done as in terms of an accountant? No, I know you're not accountants. Rather, the course was designed like this through our program director and through CBU to provide you with a glance and some in a lab-like environment for you to go through and learn some of these things from a public relations and a communication perspective. Thus, when you get into the workforce, you will have some ideas and be a breath to some of the terminology that will be useful to you. As a practitioner. As we look at the week 2 agenda, again, remember we're reading chapter 3. We have a discussion board due on Friday and Sunday, as well as assignment number 2 is due on Sunday. If you have any questions, let me know. I pray you all have a blessed week. God bless.